right, sounds like everybody's in good shape.
I see we're all wearing blue, which is good.
Yeah, it's
Today's color.
I can't see my color on the camera is bad. I can't tell what folks have on. It's either my eyesight or the camera.
all right.
Eyesight.
Nine. Are we are we ready to get started this morning? Perfect.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Truman, has anyone signed up for public comment?
Morning, Commissioners. No, we have no public commenters this morning.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Miller.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, we're going to start with agenda item 3, but we have no cases to reconsider under agenda item 3. Is that correct?
That is correct. No cases.
Then let's jump to tax liability cases under agenda item 4. We have no tax cases on docket 45. Is that correct?
None today. Thank you.
All right, on no fair housing cases under agenda item 5.
That's correct. No cases.
Well, so then we'll move to agenda item 6, where we have no wage claim cases pulled for additional consideration on docket 45.
That is correct. And I did just send you the wage claim short form dissent list.
All right, so I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 45.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I'm dissenting, as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 45.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 45.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 7 in consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 45. Please proceed when you're ready.
Case number 2494432, Commissioner Dimerson.
The claimant's MR should be denied. The claimant has not provided any new evidence on the threshold issue of good cause for a non-appearance. Therefore, since the claimant did not satisfy any of the 3 requirements for a successful MR, her motion for rehearing should be denied.
The claimant's motion for rehearing should be granted. The claimant offered with her motion for rehearing a doctor's note stating that the claimant has never had any medical restrictions. The claimant should be allowed the opportunity to offer her testimony and medical evidence to establish that she has never had any restrictions and that she's been able to work. Grant the motion for rehearing.
Grant the motion for rehearing.
We will grant the motion and conduct a rehearing.
Case number 2498533, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant was threatened by a coworker who was a felon. The claimant provided witnesses who confirmed that the claimant had been threatened and that the witnesses had spoken with the warehouse supervisor about these issues. The final incident that caused the claimant to stop reporting to work was when the warehouse supervisor, apparently fully aware that it is against the law for a felon to be in possession of firearms, encouraged the felon coworker to bring several guns to the employer's premises. The state of Texas has determined that it is unsafe for felons to possess guns and therefore made it a criminal offense. The claimant's work environment was unsafe due to his felon coworker having guns at work with the encouragement of management. The claimant had good cause to stop reporting to work. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving chargeback.
The AT decision should be affirmed. After conducting an internal investigation, the employer could not corroborate the claimant's allegation of an unsafe work environment. Findings from the U.S. Department of Labor also support that the claimant's allegations of retaliation were unfounded. Moreover, testimony and recorded conversations and evidence established that the employer asked the claimant to provide more information about his concerns, but the claimant did not do so. The claimant then refused the employer's instructions to meet with upper management. Further, the claimant was never assaulted. He never filed a police report, and he acknowledged that he may have been exaggerating the situation. While the employer was taking steps to address the claimant's concerns, the claimant refused a reasonable instruction to meet with upper management to discuss the matter. Such refusal constituted insubordination and work-connected misconduct. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2503486, Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant submitted a timely appeal via FedEx on May 6, 2020. In her appeal to CA, the claimant included the tracking number for her appeal, which shows she delivered the appeal to FedEx location in Wichita Falls, Texas, on May 6, 2020. The appeal arrived at a FedEx location in Austin the next day. There is a notation of an address correction, after which FedEx scheduled the appeal for delivery the next day, then immediately entered a notation that they could not locate the receipt. There is no indication the address correction was due to the claimant error. The appeal was sent further south to Schertz, Texas, purportedly departed from the Schertz location on May 8, 2020. There is no indication as to what FedEx did with the appeal after it left their Schertz location on on the 8th. There is insufficient evidence to establish a claimant error occurred or played a role in FedEx's inability to deliver the appeal. The claimant filed a timely appeal, resubmit for merits.
The claimant received the determination before the deadline, and the evidence suggests that the circumstances within her control caused the non-delivery of her first mailed appeal. Her hand-delivered appeal to a commission office also occurred the day after the deadline had passed. Therefore, since there are no good cause exceptions to the timeliness rules, the claimant's appeal should be dismissed as late and the underlying decision left in full force and effect.
Timely commission appeal, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 2526619, Commissioner Dimerson.
The AT decision should be modified to void the chargeback ruling. As to the job separation, the claimant quit for personal reasons. There is insufficient evidence to warrant applying any of the exceptions to disqualification enumerated under the Act to this case. We should modify the AT decision, voluntary leaving, void the chargeback ruling.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant left her job to care for her husband, who has stage 4 cancer. The claimant should not be disqualified under Section 207.0463 of the Act when she left the job to care for her terminally ill spouse. The chargeback ruling should be voided because the employer did not report base period wage credits. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, and void chargeback ruling.
Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, urgent and compelling, void chargeback, memo to UIO and CS to investigate the claimant's availability.
Here, our short form dissent.
I have your short form dissent, Commissioner Dimerson.
Thank you.
We have a majority vote to grant benefits to the claimant, but the rationales are different. Commissioner Alvarez, you voted that the claimant quit to care for a terminally ill spouse under 0463. And then urgent and compelling was the basis of your vote, Chairman Daniel.
I would agree with Chairman Daniel.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Yes, ma'am.
Case number 2549024, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The employer presented only hearsay testimony to support its allegations that the claimant failed to call and report her absences. The claimant provided sworn testimony that she reported the absences to her supervisor as required. The claimant's sworn testimony carries greater weight. The claimant had ongoing health issues in September and October and had been hospitalized and was not released to return to work. The claimant's absence with notice due to illness was not misconduct. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback, MVI, no overpayment.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant's fact-finding statements indicate that she missed work from October 16th through October 18th, which was in line with the employer's statement and testimony. The most credible evidence established that the claimant was a no-call, no-show on those dates. Furthermore, there is no evidence that the claimant's medical issues prevented her from notifying the employer of her absences as required. Consequently, I would not agree to an MVI in this case. The claimant mismanaged her position of employment, and we should affirm the AT decision. Misconduct, no chargeback, overpayment of $690.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. I have your dissent, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2562569, Commissioner Dimerson.
The AT decision should be reversed. The undisputed testimony established that the employer's policy required the claimants check in and request work from the employer. The onus was on the claimant to report to the office and request a load. but he failed to do so as required. As per his fact-finding statement, under the facts of this case, the claimant was not laid off, rather quit when he failed to request further work from the employer, which was available. Since there is no evidence that the claimant had good work-connected cause for quitting, we should reverse the AT decision, voluntary leaving.
The decision should be affirmed. The employer is a trucking company and not a temporary help firm. The claimant worked on call as needed. He did not know at the end of each shift whether further work would be available. In line with appeal number 212-CA-77, the claimant was separated for reasons other than misconduct. Affirm the AT, no misconduct.
In the AT, no misconduct.
A short form.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Dimerson.
Thank you.
Case number 2568509, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant has consistently stated in correspondence to TWC and provided uncontradicted testimony that he did not receive an information request. Furthermore, upon learning of his ineligibility, the claimant has attempted to contact TWC but has been able to get through. In accordance with longstanding commission precedent, the claimant has rebutted any presumption of receipt. As the claimant never received the request, the ineligibility should be reversed. Reverse the AT, reporting ineligible. Correction, reporting eligible.
The AT decision should be modified. The claimant did not timely report to the commission as requested. However, the ineligibility should be closed on the Saturday following the date the claimant appeared at the first AT hearing. We should therefore modify the AT decision, reporting not eligible from 7/12/2020 through August 1st, 2020.
Reverse the AT, reporting eligible. Memo to UIO and CS to contact claimant to get the requested information.
Chair, a short form.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Dimerson.
Thank you.
Case number 2570747, Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant's MR should be granted. During the claimant's appeal period, Hurricane Laura forced many Texans to evacuate. The claimant's MR explains that she was required to evacuate, which prevented her from being able to receive her mail during the appeal period. If the claimant did not timely receive the AT decision due to a natural disaster, this would be a reason to find her appeal timely. As such, we should grant the claimant's MR so that she can provide testimony on the timeliness issue. Grant the claimant's MR.
The claimant's MR does not meet the criteria for it to be granted. Accordingly, we should deny the claimant's motion for rehearing.
Deny the motion for rehearing.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2580122, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The employer testified that the claimant was discharged due to performance and attendance issues. The claimant was not given prior warnings for performance issues, and the employer had even praised the claimant's performance. The claimant's final absence was caused by the illness of her minor child. This absence occurred just before her discharge, and the claimant provided medical documentation for the absence. As the greater weight of the evidence indicates that the claimant was discharged for attendance, and since her last absence was caused by her minor child's illness, the claimant should be qualified for benefits and the employer's account protected from charge due to MVI. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback, MVI, and set aside adequate response.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The claimant was discharged for poor performance. The claimant was able to meet the employer's standards prior to her performance deteriorating. The employer stated that there were no new job duties added to the claimant's job responsibilities. As such, the claimant's poor performance amounted to misconduct connected with the work. We should therefore modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargebacks, ever adequate response.
I concur with Commissioner Alvarez.
And short form dissent, Chair.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Dimerson.
All right, thank you.
Case number 2581419, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant separated from employment because the employer failed to take appropriate safety precautions in light of the pandemic. Additionally, the claimant's job duties changed and her pay was reduced from $17 per hour to $10 per hour. As such, the claimant had good cause connected with the work to quit. If my fellow commissioners do not believe there is sufficient evidence in this case, I could agree to a rehearing to further develop the record regarding the employer's safety procedures, the change in the claimant's job duties, and the reduction in her pay. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, chargeback, set aside adequate response.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The claimant provided testimony about her hours and pay rate being changed. The claimant stated she had been earning $17 an hour, working 25 to 30 hours per week, but then her pay structure was changed to $10 an hour, working 40 hours a week. When paired against the higher number of hours that she could have worked in her prior arrangement, the claimant's reduction in earnings in her new arrangement does equate to a 20% or more cut in pay. However, when paired against the lower end of hours, it is less than a 20% pay cut. When paired against the medium of the lower and higher range of hours, it is less than a 20% pay cut as well. As such, we should conclude that the claimant did not have good cause to quit due to a reduction in earnings. We should modify the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, server adequate response. In the alternative, if my fellow commissioners conclude that the employer initiated the job separation due to a reduction of hours, we should also conclude that the reduction was the result of circumstances stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic, which would be supportable from the evidence in this case. Such a separation would protect the employer's account, and under these circumstances, we should modify the AT decision, no misconduct, no chargeback, separation due to disaster.
Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, disaster, void adequate response.
All right. We have a majority vote on the separation with the chairman and Commissioner Alvarez.
I would agree with the chairman, Daniel.
Thank you very much. So we have no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, disaster, void adequate response.
Yes, ma'am.
We're okay with that, Chair.
Unanimous decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Case number 2583475, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. The claimant was discharged from smoking in violation of the employer's policy. The claimant alleges he was given permission by a co-owner to smoke. Not only is this testimony self-serving, but it's contradicted by the employer's smoking policy, which the claimant signed, that does not allow smoking at all. It strains credibility that a co-owner of a business that deals with flammable chemicals and has a strict no smoking policy would decide to ignore that rule, which was likely implemented to avoid liability exposure in order to accommodate the claimant smoking. As such, the employer's evidence should be given greater weight. Because the employer stated that the claimant had been warned about violating the smoking policy, but nonetheless continued to do so, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct. In the alternative, if my fellow commissioners are not yet satisfied that misconduct had been established, we should hold a rehearing for the testimony of the other employer co-owner who, according to the claimant, allegedly gave him permission to smoke. In its appeal to the commission, the employer stated that this witness would have appeared at the initial hearing had the claimant not altered his reason for separation. In addition, this witness is a key figure surrounding the facts in this case. We should therefore conduct a rehearing for the employer's witness.
The AT decision is supportable. The claimant was supposedly discharged for smoking, although he was not given any reason by the employer and had recently complained about the employer's failure to pay overtime. The claimant provided credible testimony that the co-owner, who was his direct supervisor, gave the claimant permission to take a smoke break at work. The employer had no firsthand testimony to contradict the claimant. The preponderance of the evidence established that the claimant's actions did not rise to the level of misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct.
Rehear for first-hand employer testimony.
Thank you. We will rehear the case.
Case number 2588147, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant was the only party providing sworn testimony. The claimant's testimony established that the properly reported work, earning attributable to the claim certifications that she was filing. Earned vacation time is not reportable as earnings during the week that she is paid. It is a benefit previously earned. Workers' compensation is also not reportable as earnings and is addressed under a different section of the law. The overpayment should be reversed. The original claim certifications reflect the correct earnings for the claimant. Reverse the AT no earnings adjustment overpayment. In the alternative, I would ask for a rehearing to obtain more detailed testimony about what pay was earnings, and what pay was previously earned vacation pay or workers' compensation.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. Commission records reflect that the claimant was paid benefits of which she was not entitled. Accordingly, affirm the AT decision, overpayment of $1,480. In addition, we should send a memo to UIO and CS to investigate the claimant's ability to work.
I would vote to rehear to get the payroll records to investigate the pay.
We will rehear the case. Commissioner Demerson, do you still want the memo?
Yes, we do.
All right, we'll also send a memo to investigate ability to work.
Thanks for asking. Thank you.
Case number 2588553, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. The employer stated that after school closed for the summer break, the claimant did not return to work when school resumed despite work being available. The employer also stated that the claimant signed a letter of reasonable assurance. As such, the employer intended for the working relationship to continue, and when the claimant did not return back to work despite work being available, she quit without work-connected good cause. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, reimbursing the employer not billed.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant stopped working when the school she worked at closed at the end of the school term. There was no additional work available to the claimant, and she was therefore involuntarily separated under non-disqualifying circumstances. Affirm the AT bill reimbursing employer.
Reverse the AT, reimbursing employer not billed.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. I have your dissent, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2589731, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. I agree that the employer filed a timely appeal. As to the job separation, the employer has repeatedly put forth the position that the claimant's vacation request had been denied and she had exhausted her PTO. The employer's evidence reflects that the employer came to an agreement with the claimant that she would be on call for at least 2 days. However, the evidence in this case reflects that the claimant only came in for 1 day, arriving late and leaving early. In addition, the employer stated that in another instance, the claimant refused to come in to work because she was taking care of her children. The traditional understanding of being on call means that when you are called to work, you show up to work. As such, the claimant's failure to follow instructions rose to the level of work-connected misconduct. We should therefore modify the AT decision, timely employer appeal, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision should be affirmed. On the timeliness issue, I agree that the employer filed a timely appeal. On the separation, the claimant was told by the office manager to address work schedule for 3/16/3/20 through 3/19/20 with the administrative assistant. The administrative assistant gave permission for the claimant to be off work for that time period as long as she covered for any employee's absences. The claimant worked on 1 day as requested. The claimant's absence from the work with permission did not constitute misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, timely employer appeal, no misconduct, chargeback.
Modify the AT, timely employer appeal, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2591658, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The employer discharged the claimant because she was allegedly a no-show for an overtime shift. The employer failed to provide sworn firsthand testimony to support its allegations. The claimant testified that she contacted a sergeant as required by the employer's policies and reported her absence. The employer only offered an unsworn statement from the identified sergeant, and that statement references dates that are not an issue. The evidence is insufficient to support a finding of misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
You should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant had received prior warnings regarding her attendance. Despite this, she was absent again without proper notice to the employer. The fact-finding statement, when the TWC representative asked the claimant why she was absent, the claimant provided no reason and simply stated she did not go in. Taking the claimant at her word that she notified the employer she was going to be absent, the claimant provided no excuse for her absence. Consequently, the claimant's unexcused absence after prior warnings constituted misconduct connected with the work. We should modify the AT decision, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, impose adequate employer response.
Modify the AT, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2592052, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The employer presented only hearsay and unsworn statements to support its allegations. The claimant denied the allegations under oath. The evidence is not sufficient to support a finding of misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant was discharged for discussing her disciplinary history with the patient. This was in direct violation of the employer's policy. While the claimant denies wrongdoing, she testified that when questioned by staff, she admitted to her actions. Therefore, because the preponderance of the credible evidence established that the claimant violated the employer's policy after recent prior warnings, the claimant mismanaged her position of employment. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2592645, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The claimant was exposed to COVID at work and by family members. The claimant also did not feel well. The claimant's supervisor told the claimant not to report to work if she did not feel well. The employer's hotline advised the claimant to contact the ER. The ER told the claimant that she has symptoms that were not severe enough for him to be seen, and that she should be quarantined, and that he should be quarantined. The employer has never alleged that the claimant did anything wrong by quarantining due to his symptoms and known exposure to COVID-19. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, disaster.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. Because the claimant stopped working on the advice of a medical provider, the claimant should be qualified for the receipt of benefits, and the employer's account should be protected from charge under a medical separation analysis. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, MVI. In addition, based on the claimant's testimony that he was not able to work for several weeks beginning in May 2020, we should send a memo to UIO and CS to investigate whether the claimant was able and available to work.
I concur with Commissioner Emerson.
Commissioner Alvarez, the majority vote is no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, MVI.
I would agree with the MVI.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Case number 2592689, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. The claimant was discharged for poor job performance. The employer stated that the final incident that led to her termination occurred when she left the gate open at a customer school site where children could be injured, despite being warned not to do so. Commission President, Appeal Number 96-003785-10-031997. Work is not complex, and employee's failure to pay reasonable attention to simple job tasks is misconduct. It is reasonable to conclude that the ensuring a gate is closed is a simple task. As such, the claimant's failure to complete such a task, given the serious consequences that could have resulted, constituted misconduct connected with the work. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, misconduct.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant worked for a short time period and never performed the job to the employer's satisfaction. The employer failed to establish that the claimant was not working to the best of his ability. The claimant was discharged for reasons that did not constitute misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct.
Reverse the AT, misconduct.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2598555, Commissioner Dimerson.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. I agree that the claimant filed a valid claim. As to the job separation, the claimant quit in large part due to the limited personal protective equipment that the employer was able to provide in late March of 2020. The claimant worked in the homes of elderly and medically compromised patients and was concerned that one set of protective gear per day was not going to be sufficient to protect their clients. The employer at the time was not able to provide a timeline for when more PPE would be available. We should recall that back in March, there were shortages of protective equipment all across the country, and businesses had to make do with what they had available. Therefore, because the claimant's quitting resulted from the limited PPE resources available to the employer at the time, the job separation resulted from the COVID-19 natural disaster. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision, valid claim, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, separation caused by the COVID-19 disaster.
I would agree with Commissioner Dimerson.
I concur with Commissioner Alvarez.
We have a unanimous decision. Thank you.
Case number 2600720, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be modified. Valid claim, no misconduct. The claimant took a voluntary layoff in order to continue receiving employee benefits. However, if he had not taken the layoff in June, he would have been laid off in October. Appeal number 86-00326-10-121786 holds that an employee who accepts a separation or layoff package is nevertheless involuntarily separated if they are subject to a layoff even after refusing the package. In this case, the claimant was definitely going to be laid off and also would have lost his employee benefits if he did not accept the package. He was therefore laid off due to the employer's financial difficulties. Modify the AT, valid claim. The AT named the correct employer, no misconduct.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. First, I agree that the claimant filed a valid claim. As to the job separation, the claimant initiated the job separation when he agreed to participate in a voluntary separation program. If the claimant had not opted to receive the employer's benefits package, the claimant could have continued working for several more months. While the claimant's decision to choose the employer's package is understandable, it does not constitute good cause connected with the work for quitting. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant filed a valid claim, changed the employer name, voluntary leaving.
From the AT, valid claim, voluntary leaving, change employer name.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2601342, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The claimant has asthma and is at high risk of developing severe illness if she contracts COVID-19. The claimant is on a temporary furlough due to this higher risk. The claimant's reasons for leaving were were urgent, compelling, and necessary. Modify the AT, valid claim, not disqualified, urgent, compelling, and necessary, no chargeback.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. First, I agree that the claimant filed a valid claim. Regarding the job separation, the claimant initiated the job separation by choosing to no longer report to work while work was still available out of fear of contracting COVID-19. However, the employer provided personal safety equipment and there is evidence that the employer failed to follow health and safety guidelines. Because the claimant quit due to fear alone, she did not establish a good cause connected with the work quitting. We should affirm the AT decision, the claimant valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Commissioner Alvarez?
Short form dissent and memo to investigate PUA eligibility.
Yes, sir. Short form dissent and memo on PUA eligibility.
Yes, ma'am.
Case number 2601372, Commissioner Dimerson.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. On the day the claimant quit, she was scheduled to work until 2 p.m. However, she left before 10 a.m. without notice to the employer. The claimant states that she left because she was tired of waiting to speak to the scheduling coordinator, yet the claimant still had more than 4 hours left in her shift. If the claimant had any concerns about her job duties, her pay, or being asked to work on a floor with a patient who was potentially positive for COVID-19, the claimant should have communicated these to the employer before walking off the job. Furthermore, the claimant admitted that the employer was following proper COVID precautions. Because the claimant left without notice and without providing the employer a reasonable opportunity to address her concerns, the claimant quit without good cause connected with the work. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision, valid claim, voluntary leaving, void chargeback, overpayment of $2,690.
The decision should be modified. The claimant is the only party to provide firsthand evidence, and her testimony should be given greater weight. The claimant reported to work to begin her 6 a.m. shift and was told that she would have to work in a unit with a COVID patient. The claimant refused to work in the unit as she had children in her household and was worried about spreading infection. The claimant had not been informed that she would not work directly with COVID patients. She was instructed to clock out and wait to speak with the staffing coordinator. The claimant waited 3.5 hours and attempted to contact the staffing coordinator several times before leaving. The claimant was discharged shortly after she left. The claimant's refusal to work the COVID unit was reasonable, as was her decision to leave the facility after waiting over 3 hours off the clock to speak to the staffing coordinator. Modify the AT valid claim, no misconduct, no overpayment, and void chargeback.
Reverse the AT, valid claim, voluntary leaving, void chargeback, overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alvarez?
Case number 2601622, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The claimant filed a valid claim because she was working reduced hours. Regarding the job separation, the claimant was working reduced hours at the employer's request because of the pandemic. This was a cost-saving measure for the employer due to financial difficulties and should not be disqualifying. Further, as the reduced hours were caused by the disaster, the employer's account should be protected from charge. Modify the AT valid claim, no misconduct, no chargeback due to the disaster.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. First, I agree that the claimant was partially unemployed, so her claim is valid. As to the job separation, the claimant chose to reduce her hours while full-time work was available to her. Because the claimant could have continued to work and chose to reduce her hours for personal reasons, and that she wanted to reduce the time spent working near coworkers, she did not establish good cause for initiating the job separation. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant filed a valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
I couldn't hear. Chairman, could I hear your decision again?
Affirm the AT, valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Okay, great. Ms. Miller, short form dissent?
Yes, sir.
Case number 2604027, Commissioner Dimerson.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant seeks to backdate his claim because he is under the impression that unemployment benefits act as a replacement for his wages. However, this is not the case. The claimant was unable to file his claim on an earlier date because he was too ill to do so. He acknowledges that he was very ill for several weeks and filed his claim after he was cleared by his doctor. While it is true that the agency may permit the filing of backdated claims in order to prevent hardship or an injustice, there would be no injustice in this case. The claimant has clearly established that he was not medically able to work during the period of time that he seeks to backdate his claim. As such, the claimant would not have been eligible to receive benefits for those weeks. In other words, backdating the claim would result in no additional benefit paid to the claimant. Therefore, since denying the request to backdate does not result in any financial injustice for the claimant, we should affirm the AT decision, deny the request to backdate.
The decision is not correct. The claimant separated from the employer due to severe COVID-19 symptoms and stopped receiving any pay after 6/25/20. The claimant's symptoms included memory loss and required hospitalization. The claimant was physically unable to file a claim before he did so. In an effort to prevent hardship, backdating should be allowed. Reverse the AT, backdating allowed.
Affirm the AT, backdating denied.
Chair, a short form dissent. In addition, based on the claimant's testimony, statements, and documentary evidence, we should send a memo to UIO and CS to investigate whether the claimant was able to work June 28, 2020 through July 20, 2020.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I didn't catch your vote. Did you vote that the claim was to be backdated or not to be backdated?
I voted to affirm the AT, backdating denied.
Okay, so your vote agrees with Commissioner Dimerson.
I believe so.
Short form dissent, Ms. Miller?
Yes, sir. And Commissioner Dimerson, do you still want the memo?
No, no need for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Case number 2607123, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The parties agreed that the claimant ceased working for the employer on April 4, 2020, due to the pandemic-related concerns. The claimant filed his IC on June 10, 2020, well after his separation, but it was backdated to March 22, 2020. The claimant's IC date should be corrected to April 5, 2020. Regarding the separation, the claimant lives with his elderly grandmother who has underlying health conditions. His job required him to be around numerous customers and at times in a confined space with greater than 25 people at a time. The claimant was unable to properly socially distance himself while working, and some supervisors had instructed employees not to wear masks. The employer admitted they were not providing PPE or mandating their use when the pandemic started. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback disaster. Correct claimant's IC date to April 5th, 2020.
And the staff recommendation is supportable. Based on the claimant's testimony and the documentary evidence in the case, the claimant filed his UI claim in June 2020, and TWC originally backdated it to a date that was 2 weeks earlier than the date on which he became unemployed. The staff recommendation protects the claimant's rights by instructing UIO and CS to help him file a new claim with the correct date for his unemployment. The new initial claim will allow the claimant a fresh opportunity to explain the circumstances of his work separation. Accordingly, we should vote as recommended by staff, void the initial claim, and send a memo to UIO and CS on assisting the claimant with filing a corrected initial claim reflecting the actual date of his unemployment.
Concur with Commissioner Dimerson.
Short form dissent?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2613038, Commissioner Dimerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. The court pointed to several deficiencies in the claimant's work as reasons for her discharge. While I have no doubt that there were issues with the claimant's job performance, the final incident seems to involve the claimant of gathering in a swimming pool with coworkers without following health and safety guidelines while on quarantine from work and seeking testing due to COVID-19 concerns. Employer has a duty to ensure the safety of its employees. However, employers need the cooperation of employees in order to maintain and protect the health and welfare of its staff. By not following the recommended safety guidelines while the claimant was supposed to be quarantined due to a potential exposure to the virus, the claimant mismanaged her position of employment. We should reverse the AT decision, misconduct.
The decision is supportable. The employer has provided inconsistent testimony and statements regarding the reason for the claimant's discharge. In fact-finding statements, the employer specifically stated the final incident was the fact that the claimant went swimming while in quarantine. The AT found this to be the most credible reason the employer discharged the claimant, and the AT is in the best position to determine the credibility of the parties. The claimant's swimming activities were not work-related and not misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct.
Reverse the AT, misconduct.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez. And that was the last pulled case for unemployment insurance cases on docket 45. I sent earlier in the meeting the short form dissent list for docket 45.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 40.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 45.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting, as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 45.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. Let's pause for a few moments to reset for the rest of the meeting.
All right.
All right, everybody ready to tackle the rest of this?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right, we'll pick back up with agenda item 8, but staff doesn't have anything to present for agenda item 8. So we'll move to agenda item 9, discussion, consideration, possible action regarding publication, public comment, and proposed amendments to 40 Chapter 806, purchasing from people with disabilities relating to the implementation of Senate Bill 753, 86 Texas Legislature regular session, and PPD program improvements.
Morning, Commissioners. Mr. Cerna, for the record, this is Michael Hooks with the Office of Disability Employment Strategies, the VR Division. Today, I bring for your consideration potential action, proposed rules for TWC, Chapter 806, purchasing from people with disabilities. The purpose of the amendments to the chapter is to implement Senate Bill 753, the 86 Texas Legislature, including requirements for community rehabilitation programs, or CRPs, to pay employees with disabilities minimum wage and submit transition and retention plans to help with this requirement, and to provide program clarification and improvement opportunities, including maintaining the 75% of direct labor hours to be contributed by employees with disabilities and allowing the Commission to approve a percentage different than 75% at the time of the CRP's initial certification and subsequent recertifications for a CRP for reasons including the CRPs proposing to participate in the PPD program and offer competitive integrated employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities. Staff seeks direction on approval to solicit public comment on the proposed amendments to 40 TAC Chapter 806. I'm open to any questions you may have on that.
Any comments or questions?
None here, Chairman.
None.
Do we have a motion on this issue?
I move that we approve the proposed Chapter 806 rules and the rule review to be posted to the Texas Register as discussed by staff.
Second.
Been moved, seconded, we're unanimous. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 10, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the establishment of an information technology registered apprenticeship expansion program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Cerna, Courtney Arbor, Workforce Division. Last week, staff brought forward for your consideration an IT-focused apprenticeship discussion paper with the use of WIOA dollars. You all had some questions for staff, which we've provided written responses to in the last week. Each of your offices individually received those same responses. And I'm here as a resource to clarify any of those questions and answers or provide any other information.
Any comments or questions?
Chairman, before I make any comments, I'd like to hear from both yourself and Commissioner Demerson, if that's okay, since this item was brought up at my request.
Commissioner Demerson.
Yeah, basically, the staff provided answers to a lot of the questions that were raised. And so, Courtney, thank you guys for getting that over. I did not have any additional questions. The only thing that I talked about was the fact of the $4 million. This would take the entire $4 million, and I would like to see that reduced from $4 million to about $2 million, or so at least half of it, because we really didn't have funds available from what I've heard. But anyway, the $2 million allows us to maybe do some other things that in response to this pandemic and other things that may be of interest. And so those were the only comments I had. I really did not second the motion because Chairman had questions, and I wanted to make sure that those questions were addressed before we took any actions on this item. That's all I have.
I have one remaining question. It has to do with the purchase of tools. So the answer to that question was still a little bit vague. You used the word hardware in your answer. Does that include computers, computing peripheral equipment? What would encompass tools in this instance?
Normally, when we develop an RFA similar to this one, we would go back with the office who made the request to clarify, but there was an expectation here that we would make some hardware and software available to grantees if they had a stated need.
But we don't know what that is.
I have not heard from an employer specific to the hardware needs. We know that some of the software-based trainings, we can assume that with some of the software-based trainings, the software will be a key part of the training.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Courtney, I have a question for you. Can you tell me how much, for clarification, I know you sent an email out earlier, if it wasn't last night, this morning, on how much we have in WIO reserve as of today?
Yes, sir. I sent an email late yesterday afternoon that we're doing a couple of things as requested last week. We've gone back to the workforce boards who have WIOA funding and their cost per may have been lower in different programs and that they anticipated, or the local needs changed. And we've identified about $250,000. That wasn't in the email, commissioners. I've just learned that this morning. But the boards have identified about $250,000 in dollars that may go unspent that we could sweep back. But in addition, we worked with finance and looked back at the funding that was set aside for one of the other COVID-related projects, the skills enhancement project. You all approved funding in a larger amount than what staff were able to negotiate. And so an additional $4 million in WIOA is available to you at this time. So that brings the total to about 8.3 in addition to the 250 that wasn't in the email that I mentioned, or that I sent you last night.
Thank you, Courtney.
All right, additional comments or questions? Do we have a motion on this issue?
Chairman, I have a motion. I move that we approve the statewide initiative as discussed by staff at $4 million for an IT apprenticeship program.
Is there a second?
Chairman, I mean, I think I made comments earlier about the fact of the dollar amount and 4 million that we have here. Courtney mentioned something about 4 million coming back, but again, that was set aside for skills development fund related projects. And so staff's gone back and said that they can't commit those just yet, I believe, but that was a very useful program. And it's one that we put out there that there may be some use there. And so I'm very hesitant to really tap into those dollars because they were outlaid and we probably have these pandemic related issues or situations that are there. I think last week when we were talking, Commissioner Alvarez, the 4 million that would be remaining would pretty much be wiped out. It would leave us with $200,000 or what I think it was 4.2 million or so. And the new information comes back. I'm not sure, you know, in regards to that. I'd like us to go at half of that, which allows us to do some other things perhaps along these lines.
Okay.
Would you be in agreement to go from 4 million to 3 million? I mean, I know you're going to be meeting with some folks regarding how we can train IT folks.
Yeah, so 4 million to 3 million. Courtney, the remaining money that's coming back, was that the skills development fund that we utilized for, what was that 4 million for?
That 4 million that has been identified as available to you was from the online learning. We went into metrics online learning, and when you approved that funding, it was WIOA, not skills development funding. It was WIOA, and we called it the skills enhancement project. You approved it at 5.8 million, and we were able to get unlimited licenses and a really good negotiated package at just under 1.8 million. So you've got 4 million in addition to the 4.3 that we've discussed previously.
That 4 million, is that for use of statewide initiatives if we come up with other initiatives or so? So we have 4 million. Okay, 4 million there. Commissioner Alvarez, yeah, down to 3 million would be fine.
Okay, I would be okay with 3 million.
Okay, so procedurally, it sounds like we have a motion for $3 million to implement the staff proposal from last week. I think that's what I just heard. Commissioner Demerson seems inclined to second that, but if we could do that for the record, that would be important.
Second that motion.
So we have a motion before us to implement the staff recommendation from last week at a total of $3 million rather than $4 million as staff proposed originally. Commissioner Alvarez, I assume you're voting aye.
Aye, sir.
Yeah, Commissioner Demerson?
I'm in favor of that.
I too will be in favor of that. And so let's move forward like that.
Great.
Let's move to agenda item 11, statewide initiatives, but staff doesn't have anything to present there. So we'll move to agenda item 12. This is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding guidance on resource utilization and implementation of services and strategies to target disaster relief efforts and public health emergencies, including those funded with the Department of Labor's Disaster Dislocated Worker Grant.
14. I think we have an update from, brief update from Courtney Arbor on our activity in that area.
That's correct. Commissioners, Mr. Cerna, Arbor Workforce Division. I have some notes here that I'm going to read from. There's a lot of numbers here, so I want to make sure I get them right for you. I do have an update on the COVID response items that the commission approved a few months ago. As you know, we rolled out a number of different funds or grants very quickly after your approval, and I want to give you just some of the key stats on what type of services have been provided and what those numbers look like for both employers and claimants and job seekers. With the Disaster Dislocated Worker Grant that we received from the Department of Labor, we've enrolled 557 participants, and about half of those are employed, are now employed. We have hired a number of temporary staff with the TANF dollars to help with local needs, to help job seekers with all they need during this period of transition while they're trying to get back to work, and also reaching out to employers to help with their hiring needs and other struggles that they have faced during COVID. With the WIOA grants, we've served 81,318 individuals. And with the skills COVID dollars, the skills development fund dollars, 278 employers are participating with 3,189 people trained. You know that we contracted with a couple of call centers different than what the UI call centers do. The call centers that we contracted were to help make phone calls to claimants because there was just such a demand for staff support. We contracted with two call centers, and they've been contacting claimants to see how we can helping them get registered for work, pointing them toward workforce solutions offices. And to date, since we contracted with them in July, they've contacted more than 341,000 claimants, helping more than 35,000 complete a Work in Texas registration. And while the goal was really to help people find resources, we've learned through those calls that 16,798 claimants were contacted by, have returned to work. During our calls to them, they've let us know they've gone back to work. We've also done a round of surveys to people that have received calls from the call center staff to see if they found these phone calls and the support helpful. We've had 1,600 responses. 30% of the respondents have said that they've gone back to work, but we thought this was an interesting statistic that of those that have gone back to work, 67% of those indicated they've gone back to work with the prior employer. So we appreciated hearing that employers are able to bring back any of their past workers. 46% indicated using Work in Texas to look for a job, and they've used it to identify jobs in their local areas. Metrics online learning, I mentioned it a moment ago. We contracted in July with Metrics to provide a number of online courses to claimants at no cost to them. We've had 43,770 claimants register to use the system. 31,243 courses have been completed with about 37,000 hours spent. So we are glad to see so many claimants using this no-cost resource right now to increase their skills while they have time to do so. I'm happy to answer any questions about that update.
Any comments or questions?
None here, Chairman.
Courtney, good update. If you have that on paper, I'd love to get a copy of that report. That's good information. Love to kind of share that out, especially what the employers are doing from that standpoint.
Great, I'll send it to each of you now.
Thank you.
Great. Any additional questions, comments? None? All right. That's it on agenda item 12. I know on agenda item 13, staff has nothing to report. Let's move to agenda items 14 and 15 reports. I believe we do have a legislative report today.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Tom McCarty, External Relations. Yesterday was the first day of pre-filing of legislation for the 87th Texas Legislature. Pre-filing will continue until the legislature convenes on Tuesday, January the 12th of 2021 at noon. Yesterday, also, the U.S. Senate returned from recess. The Senate has indicated that it will begin considering all appropriation titles that can be combined into an omnibus funding bill that will fund the federal government through the end of the fiscal year. The federal government funding currently expires on December the 11th of 2020. The U.S. House remains in recess until next week. And this concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, questions or comments?
None here, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Cerna. Thank you. Mr. Cerna, Executive Director's report today.
Just one quick note to the commission, our commissioners. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, and though the agency, like other governmental organizations, will be closed, our call centers will be open and taking calls and working to serve our customers. I would like to let the commissioners know that we will, in fact, be closed on Thanksgiving Day, and by that I mean our call centers. Our call centers will be closed on Thanksgiving Day, on Christmas Day, and on the 1st of January to allow our staff and our contract staff to spend time with their families on those 3 days, those 3 holidays. Though those state agencies will be closed for longer periods of time, the call centers will only be closed on those single days, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. So I wanted to let you all know about that. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you for the update. Questions or comments?
None here, Chairman.
Chairman, before it goes, I'd like to ask him if you would have the staff, the team, help my office with developing a proposal for future discussion with the commissioners. It's around the restaurant and food service industry. And, you guys know this has been devastating COVID-19. And so prior to this pandemic, we had about 50,000 locations, 1.3 million employees in that industry, $70 billion in annual revenue. So not only from that standpoint, Chairman, your past background, they represent 51% of the Texas food dollar supply. The state's food supply chain is very important as well. And so I want to look at some sources of funding to potentially do some things to help them train their labor force while they're adapting to this new model. The governor and that strike force team did what they could and continue to do what they can for that industry. But I want to work with the team to see if there's anything else that we can do as folks start coming back in those areas. Many are trying to retrofit their businesses, carry out, delivery, capacity caps, and all those kind of things, social distancing that we're having to do as well. And so I want to look at some things there, and Ed, if you allow me to work with the team, I very much appreciate that.
Absolutely, sir. We'll assist in any way that we can in helping those industries. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments for Mr. Cerna?
None here, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any other items to come before the commission today?
No, sir.
Chairman, I would just like to say a few things. One, I'd like to acknowledge Veterans Observance this week. I want to thank all our boards for putting on a great Red, White, and U events in our state. Very well received, and I know we were all a part of that, so I just wanted to acknowledge it at this time on boards. I also wanted to thank Tom McCarty and his team for allowing us to get a proclamation from the governor that I am presenting on behalf of the governor, acknowledging National Apprenticeship Week this week. As you know, we're celebrating the festivities this week with various schools and apprenticeship programs around the state. And I wanted to present this to Ed so that he could display it there outside of our commission room. So on behalf of the governor providing this with us, I wanted to thank Tom for getting it for us so that we could go ahead and present it to the agency and to the commissioners.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, also like Veterans Day tomorrow, hats tipped to all of our veterans. We had an opportunity this past week to do participate in a We Hire Vets initiative where we actually were able to recognize Pflugerville Community Economic Development Corporation, Amy Madison and that team, the Workforce Solutions area, Cal area, Tamara and her team, and then Bullock Investigations, a company as well, where they had 47.75% of their staff that are veterans. And so we were able to honor them along with the Texas Veterans Commission in the ceremony before one of our sessions, our lunchtime live sessions. And so hats tipped off to those companies that have 10% of their workforce that's made up of veterans. And that is a nice initiative, but it's just a way that employers are making a difference, hiring our nation's heroes. And we appreciate all that they're doing in that regard.
Absolutely. I had just through an interesting series of events, I had the opportunity last week to make the acquaintance of a veteran here in Texas who was wounded, ultimately left the military. He's become an entrepreneur, and he's got a thriving little business going on. We talked at great length about what it's like to come back, not just from the forward areas, but to come back wounded and then find a way to find the right kind of job upon leaving the military. And I gained a lot of insight from him. And tomorrow, I think I'll spend a lot of time sort of thinking about, what we can be doing to help ease that transition back into the workforce for the folks that are exiting the military and coming back into the civilian workforce in the state. And so I'm so thrilled to have had an opportunity to talk to him and hear his story. It really helps me do a better job as a commissioner as well. And so tomorrow, as we celebrate Veterans Day, I'm sure we all have a similar story. There's real folks that we're thinking about and real opportunities for a lot of other veterans that I just haven't had the opportunity to meet yet.
Chairman, I look forward to working on your efforts as well as Commissioner Demerson.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Is there any other, we would entertain a motion to adjourn if there's no further business.
Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
I second the motion.
7 o'clock tonight.
Moved and seconded to adjourn, and we are adjourned.
Fox Sports.
Yep.
Have fun out there.
Fox Sports tonight.
Make good calls.